Come one, come all to see the new Batman movie, Batman Gotham by Gaslight. It's a very good old time.
Yeah, new but old, kind of. Taking place obviously in the past in an alternate timeline, but
Yeah, definitely. So hi, welcome to Anchor Reviews on episode of After the Credits on Anchor Reviews. This is Tyler from Anchor Reviews.
and Stephen from Stephen Lawson Studios.
Yes, and we just watched Batman Gotham by Gaslight. Now, usually we record this on our microphones and that, but I don't know why it's not loading the sound stuff. So technical difficulties, folks. So we're just recording on our phone. Usually we do this when we just saw a movie in theaters, but this was direct to video. So yeah, this is kind of weird in that. But anyway, Batman Gotham by Gaslight is a new animated movie by DC Comics. And of course, it's actually based off the Batman, or kind of based off, I haven't read it myself personally, the Batman Gotham by Gaslight graphic novel that was published about 30 years ago. And I'm trying to remember who wrote it, but it was illustrated by Mike Mignola. You probably heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy who created Hellboy, and he also worked
Oh
on
yeah,
Batman the Animated Series briefly
right.
as the guy who created the design of Mr. Freeze. And he also, I remember him illustrating the graphic novel tie-in to Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I've been kind of beating around the bush to review that, but other stuff has come up and that sort of thing.
Sure.
So, of course, it's based on a graphic novel and that. So the plot is about taking place in the late 1800s in Gotham City. So yeah, Bruce Greenwood voices Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, and basically there is a new man in Gotham City known as Jack the Ripper who has gone around Gotham City and killing various prostitutes, and he has to figure out who is this individual who is killing all these women. In addition, he's joined by Selena Kyle, voiced by Jennifer Carpenter, and other various characters in the Batman lore. Now, it's pretty interesting seeing this kind of movie. I mean, I was actually really looking forward to watching this movie because we haven't seen this kind of animated Batman movie or any kind of DC animated movie that's direct to video in a long time. Because sadly, there's been a lot of kind of cinematic universe-esque, like overly connected animated movies where it's like, okay, we have a overly similar animation style, and we're gonna have like everything kind of connected to other movies, like for example, Justice League War, Batman, Bad Blood, which I didn't care for whatsoever, and I was just kind of tired of it. They were doing it for years. So it was a complete breath of fresh air. They're actually adapting an actual graphic novel to the small screen, which I'm like, okay, I actually want to see more of these kind of interesting stories that obviously would be kind of too costly and questionable for like a big budget live action movie and that sort of deal. So I'm looking forward to them actually making more of these kinds of stuff. Now, in addition to that, I also heard that one big difference between this graphic novel and the movie is that the character of Selena Kyle was not in the graphic novel, but they added her in the movie. So I just thought it was kind of interesting. On top of that, I noticed in the opening credits, characters like Bruce Timm, well, not characters, but people, Bruce Timm and Alan Burnett, who of course were big people on Batman the Animated Series.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think there were also big time people involved in the DC Animated Universe, which also includes Justice League,
Yep.
and Superman, Batman Beyond, and Static Shock. And so on and so forth. And yeah, I mean, what did you think of this movie so far? I mean, at least when we watched it, Steven?
I mean, I thought it was pretty solid. It's definitely not my favorite of the Batman films of the animated variety. I kind of felt it had a bit of a leg up over the gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the one with Harley Quinn.
Oh, Batman Harley Quinn.
Yeah, that one honestly was probably one of the weakest I've seen in a while, and this was a step up from that in a lot of ways. But at the same time, there were some aspects of it that I don't know how much we want to get into about it because it's like spoiler territory. But
Yeah.
with some of the plot points of like who the Ripper turned out to be, who was a mystery and stuff, it I mean, it made sense, but it was also like, come on, really? Like,
Yeah, it kind of didn't feel right. I'm not gonna spoil, who's the Ripper, but just kind of felt, oh, I mean, okay, it's a plot twist, and it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, these are things in a plot twist where it's like, okay, it makes sense. It should work well. Problem is, I'm like, it just didn't feel right. Like, I wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm for this. I'm like, oh, wait. But trying to remember what I was gonna say about it as well, but there's a lot of Batman characters, of course, they introduce. Of course, we got Gordon, we have, Selena Kyle, and we also have Alfred Pennyworth. Of course, he's a given, and we have Harvey Dent, which is pretty interesting. On top of that, we also have some of the orphan boys like Dickie, which is Dick Grayson, probably
Mm-hmm.
they're hinting at, and also Tim and also Drakey. I mean,
Mm,
or Jason, who are obviously like the first three Robins, which
right.
is an obvious reference to in that. And then also Pamela Isley's in this, who kind of in a weird way gets axed off pretty early. I mean, it's not much of a spoiler because it's like the first like 10 minutes of the movie.
If even, yeah. Like it was interesting how many characters they tried to put in. They didn't put anyone really on the nose for the Joker. They talked about clowns a little bit, but
Well, at one point, that one song number was like briefly
yeah.
mentioned.
But I mean, there wasn't like a stand-in for the Joker, but there were, I mean, clear, if you will, representations at least in terms of like appearance of Poison Ivy, and of course Selena being, Catwoman,
Well, they
and
weren't called Cat. She wasn't called
sure,
Catwoman. She
no,
wasn't. I mean, I know what the characters are
but
supposed to be.
we as Batman fans know Selena Kyle equals Catwoman in the modern day context, and there was a person that looked very similar, although didn't really act like a scarecrow type of
I think she was just supposed
appearance.
to be like really ragged. I don't think she was. That was even intended.
Well, I think the color scheme and stuff were pretty intentional. Like
They did some
the
weird
fact that
kind of gender swap.
yeah, no, it was. I think it was just a kind of we're here type of thing, even if it didn't do the
May have been
characters
coincidental.
justice. But at the same time, I kind of appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, also we have like Dr. Hugo Strange and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, which I thought was kind of interesting, kind of like a red herring, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, which I liked. But also, back to Batman the animated series, I like how few of the voices were by not just Tara Strong, of course, she voiced
Yeah.
Batgirl and that, and also Harley Quinn in some of the Batman Arkham games, but also Bruce Timm voiced a one random guy like as a cameo, which I thought was kind of cool
Mm-hmm.
in that.
Tara Strong. Ooh. I am trying to get into voiceover myself, and she boo, she boo. Oh,
You might be disappointed because she's been married for a while
I
and has
know
kids.
that. I know that.
But yeah, she's pretty talented
She
and
is.
she's also pretty hot too. Just wanted to quickly state that.
Yeah, shout out to her.
I mean, it's more credible than like who one of those Jimmy guys who says this porn star is talented. Please, I think the garbage men are more talented.
Waste management.
I just like the whole like look of this movie. I think the production design was pretty good for recreating like the late 1800s and that. But there was a line of dialogue that was pretty cringeworthy.
Mm.
That was like, well, it's like, aren't you like engaged to this other woman? Well, it's the 19th century in that, and I'm like, I swear, people use the date of where they're living as a stupid
Excuse.
reason to like say, oh, I'm just gonna do like do what thou will kind
Thou
of
willst,
ideology.
Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, mild neo nihilism in a way.
But
Yeah, kind of the buzzwords people have been using to describe the Last Jedi a bit lately. I've
yeah.
noticed. But anyway, I just felt like it was interesting. One of the person who voiced Sister Leslie, which is like Leslie, Dr. Leslie Tompkins,
Mm.
Gray DeLasley or how you ever pronounce her last name. She actually voiced Catwoman in the Batman Arkham games.
Hmm.
I think that was her, but I just thought it was kind of interesting in that.
Yeah.
Now,
that is interesting.
what'd you think of Bruce Greenwood as Batman?
I thought he did a real good voice. There were a couple times um, where I don't know, I felt like accent, or at least in terms of the, the tone, he may have broken character a little bit during a couple situations. But overall, I think the voice fit him very well. And it was a good pick. I mean, he does have a voice that's pretty recognizable, and it's very masculine, so it made sense for, Bruce Wayne. And I think it was a pretty solid pick. Not one that would have first jumped to mind, but I think pretty justifiable.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bruce Greenwood is a pretty good voice actor choice for Batman. I think he voiced Batman in Young Justice, and it's supposed to be coming back, so I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think he's a pretty good voice for Batman, but I still definitely prefer Kevin Conroy, of
sure.
course.
Yeah.
But I do think that Bruce Greenwood is also a pretty good voice. What did you think of Jennifer Carpenter as Selena Kyle?
I liked her quite a bit, actually. I think throughout she was consistently very solid, and I didn't particularly notice anything that jumped out as, well, that was a bit of a slip, but she was a very solid choice, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what's funny is that Jennifer Carpenter, I know her best from Quarantine, which, by the way, if you don't know, the poster for the movie is the ending of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, that's some stupid crap. It's kind of like how the artwork for home video versions of Planet of the Apes shows like the plot twist at the end of the movie, which is so stupid. Like, why would you do that? It's like the equivalent of showing that big plot twist in Empire Strikes Back, and that's like the cover of the home video thing
Right.
for it. But yeah, but anyway, I think yeah, she was pretty good in this film. I really loved her design in this movie, like how she looked
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. On top of that, I like how they show her like backstory, like why she knows how to use a whip, why she likes felines and cats so much, and that.
Yeah, her and Bruce's interaction was very interesting, and I found very um, one of the highlights of it. Like there have been good interactions between Batman and Catwoman before, but in this it kind of made sense. And one thing that I wasn't completely nuts about was there was a part where it was almost like Batman was a little bit demasculated temporarily in terms of, he's a little in bit of a pickle, a desperate situation, and she happens to be there to help. But and while it worked for that, I wasn't necessarily nuts about, really Batman is, this caught off guard and stuff. I'm not necessarily buying that, but
Well,
um,
actually, I'm glad you brought that up because there's a moment in the movie that really reminded me of Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
mhm.
Because, for one, there's a part where Batman is injured badly and he's being chased by the police. And on top of that, a love interest of his so happens to save him,
Sure.
in the nick of time. Which, again, this was similar to Mask of the Phantasm. While I think Mask of the Phantasm did it better, but it just reminded me of that
Mhm.
in a way. On top of that, of course, there's that. I think one of my favorite moments in the movie is when the police are searching the buggies and that, and they make it look like they're having sex.
Yeah.
Like, problem officer, that I gotta say, the interior of that buggy like tripled in size.
It did. It sure did.
I gotta say, like, it kind of reminded me of when Batman: The Killing Joke came out, and everyone completely lost their mind when Batman slept with Batgirl.
Right.
But when Batman sleeps with Catwoman, everyone's like all cool with it.
NBD, no big deal.
I mean, it's so hypocritical. I know some people would argue like, "Oh, but that's so wrong." In that, well, did you guys watch like Batman Beyond, where they clearly stated that they had a thing at one point?
Mm-hmm.
In addition, in the animated series, Barbara kind of fantasized about Batman briefly. I mean, it was kind of a love triangle between Robin and Batman, with like her and the middle, like can't decide between who she likes better.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, there was an issue of Batman Beyond where they show a backstory where she actually got pregnant with Bruce and she was like dating, Robin again.
Well.
And but the thing was like they're thinking about getting engaged, maybe, but then, she finds out she's like 2 months pregnant, but he's only been back in Gotham for like a month. It's a pretty, interesting story, but it's also pretty sad too,
Yeah.
where it ends with her accidentally having like a miscarriage, and that, I know, slight spoiler for the comic book world. Well, this was like a few years ago, it would be, but
Yeah.
anyway, enough with the, like,
The
oh,
book
but
spoiler.
this, source material here. The other thing I wanted to bring up about the movie itself was that, I mean, yeah, I was kind of disappointed that Poison Ivy's character was like axed off
Mm.
like so early in the movie, like Pam Isley, but also I'm kind of hoping that if they ever make a sequel to this, which there was a sequel to this graphic novel that's based off of, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I just hope that maybe they'll maybe do some weird resurrection, like someone will do like some Frankenstein creation on her and do that sort of thing, which I would really like to see happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
It is possible.
yeah, no,
It's Gotham. So.
yeah. I mean, with the main villain, of course, Jack the Ripper, felt like sometimes he was kind of a little bit overpowered. Like they kind of show like yeah, he was a trained, has experience in fighting and that, but I just felt like yeah, I don't think Jack the Ripper should give Batman this much trouble.
To put it kindly, yeah.
On top of that, there's like 3 moments in this movie where Batman, either when he's Bruce Wayne or as Batman, he fails to save people 3 times when Jack the Ripper kills people. We're not going to say who it is, but besides Pamela Isley, which is obviously the first one that happens.
And one or two are important to him. Like, on top of it, it's not like just, abstract, I am the purveyor of justice of the city and must protect everyone. No, there were a couple that were like, oh crap, they were part of who raised me and stuff. So, like, the fact that he was failing those people, it's like, come on. You're telling me he would have failed those people?
And I thought there was going to be like a scene in one part where it's like, oh, do we go after Jack or does he save, so-and-so? And obviously there wasn't much time to do that because that person died quickly.
Right.
So there was, okay, I only got one option left. I thought it was pretty cool when he fought him on that blimp.
Yeah,
that one scene.
Cool.
Like, okay, that was pretty cool such in that. With the whole propeller stuff, I thought that it was going to be like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right. And blowing up Zeppelins before it was cool. Like...
I'm expecting Led Zeppelin cameo.
Right.
Which would be awesome. It would definitely I would give a movie an additional star rating if Led Zeppelin was in this or played a song.
That'd be funny.
It was random out of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, I thought the design of the Batman suit was pretty interesting in that for what it was for its time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of gadgets, but I'm surprised Batman didn't use his gadgets too much.
Seriously, they were basically there for show, like...
Most of the time.
I think the only one he did use was like the...
Batarang, grapple hook.
The grapple hook and the gas, like, to repel the cops briefly, but...
It's like, how come he couldn't use any of that stuff when he's fighting Jack the Ripper?
Right.
He's got the batarangs and all these other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, I think it was mentioned that he had, like, a flashlight and that. The ending of the... I'm not going to say what happens at the end of the film, but it kind of felt a little abrupt, how it ended. Just a little abrupt, in a way. Like,
totally.
It wasn't as badly abrupt, like... Batman and Harley Quinn, which kind of felt like the Gray in a way. It was just so like way too abrupt.
Yeah.
In that. So yeah, what would you give this movie, Stephen?
Oh gosh, what would I give this movie? I mean, it was solid, but it was far from the best Batman thing I've ever seen. There were plenty of decent aspects about it. And I definitely think if you're into like the animated movies, it's probably worth a view. With that being said, I'd say overall, I feel somewhere in the area of like 72 to a 76% is roughly what I'd give it because, I mean, just some of the story elements that we can't get into, they didn't quite feel right for Batman, even in the context of a different time. And the other thing, I think we disagree a little bit in terms of the animation style and quality, because overall I liked it, but there was some stuff with like fire that would show up that you could see in
CGI.
In the contrast was just like blatantly not great quality. You know, the contrast was not achieved for a ideal effect. And
yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, the water in Tarzan from the 90s.
Yeah, so I just, I mean, it was definitely fun. If this was in theaters, I wouldn't say run to see it in theaters.
Definitely not.
For $3-4 or, even $1 at a Redbox, I would definitely say this is worth a view. And it was definitely better than the Harley Quinn film.
Yeah, I liked it more.
But, yeah, so...
Well, at least I prefer it more. Personally, I think I want to rewatch parts of this movie because there are times where, you were talking during like a dialogue scene. I'm like, oh, I'm trying to hear what these people are saying. Yeah. And that I think we didn't really time it good for when we were making our one-liners and that. But yeah, I mean, I mean, the animation stuff, like, there were some shots, like in the opening, where these guys are moving crates and whatever boxes. It
Mhm.
felt a little choppy in animation, but I
True.
really liked the design of a lot of the characters, like the way they looked, like the art style
Yeah.
and the background stuff. I really liked. The voice acting was pretty solid. I really liked the soundtrack. I did like how they kind of played with the mythology, like, oh, let's look at it through a different, timeline, and so on and so forth, like that, and the different spin on characters and such. I
Mhm.
just felt like with Jack the Ripper and that, I just felt like they could have done a better job with like a plot twist or so on and so forth with that.
Yeah.
It just didn't really feel right to me overall with that, like kind of when it's revealed who the Jack the Ripper is. But also, I just felt like the movie was pretty interesting. I definitely like it more than, well, at least prefer it more than the majority of DC animated movies that have been made in the past 7 years or so that are like cinematic university that just
Yeah.
feel in a way. Just that's my thoughts and feelings are on those.
I got you.
So overall, with Batman Gotham by Gaslight, I mean, I'm kind of mildly disappointed in some stuff, but I did enjoy this one. So overall, I'll give Batman Gotham by Gaslight about 2.5 stars out of 4.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. And yeah, I didn't really get into saying it, but I would say like the character design and the voiceover as a person trying to get into voiceover myself, I overall really agree that those aspects were, very well executed overall.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
get why the Wayne Manor was not like a mansion. It was actually in the city, and the Batcave was like in the attic.
yeah,
Just kind of weird. On top of that, he was like looking through some stuff and such, and it's like, were you making meth here or something like
yeah,
that? With the test tubes and other lab equipment.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess is what happens when you watch too much Breaking Bad. So this is Tyler from Critter Reviews.
And Stephen from Stephen Lawson Studios.
Yes, we hope you enjoy this episode of After the Credits on End Critter Reviews, and we hope to make a lot more in the future. Please like and subscribe.